Ethan was a 3-year-old boy adopted by Michael and Rachel after 8 long years of struggling with infertility. The decision to adopt came to them like a small flame rekindling hope, but the adjustment period was far more difficult than they had imagined. Despite being welcomed with love and careful preparation, Ethan still carried the shyness and guardedness of a child who had never truly felt long-term safety. He spoke little, avoided eye contact, and often sat for hours hugging an old toy from the orphanage, as if it were the only thing that felt familiar. In the early days, Rachel worried whether her love would be strong enough to reach into her son's fragile inner world. Michael tried to stay calm, trusting that time would heal. Yet neither of them expected that change would come from somewhere so unexpected: the statue of the Virgin Mary in their backyard. The statue was a treasured keepsake from Rachel's grandmother, a gentle, faith-filled woman who had passed away years before. Rachel kept it as a beautiful piece of her childhood, but she never imagined a 3-year-old boy would be drawn to it so strongly. Ethan began spending more time in the garden, quietly standing before the statue with an attentive gaze, as though he were seeing something the adults could not. At first, Rachel thought it was simple curiosity. But day by day, she noticed that whenever Ethan stepped into the garden, his face softened, and at times he even smiled faintly, something rare since he had joined their family. This subtle but undeniable change touched Rachel deeply. She didn't know what this. Michael, meanwhile, remained skeptical. He was glad Ethan was opening up, but also worried. Was it normal for a child to become so attached to an inanimate object? Was there a deeper loneliness hiding behind his silence? Despite their concerns, both parents couldn't deny that the statue's presence was opening a small doorway, one that allowed Ethan to slowly step out of his shell. And they hoped that doorway would continue widening, leading him toward the peaceful, loving life he deserved. When Ethan began talking to the lady in blue, Rachel simply smiled, thinking it was normal for children. Imaginary friends were common, especially for kids who had gone through major changes. She assumed it was Ethan's way of comforting himself in a new environment. But the more she listened, the more she realized that something about his stories didn't sound like typical childish imagination. Ethan spoke with seriousness, his eyes fixed on the corner of the garden where the Virgin Mary statue stood under the shade of a tree. He described the woman in blue with vivid detail: her pale blue cloak, her gentle face, her soft but firm voice. What startled Rachel was the way Ethan paused, listened, and nodded, as if receiving important instructions from someone. One afternoon, while Rachel was preparing dinner, Ethan burst into the house, pale with fear. He tugged her sleeve and stammered that the lady in blue said Mr. Harrison was in danger. Rachel hesitated, unsure how to react. Mr. Harrison, their elderly neighbor, lived alone and was in poor health. She tried to reassure Ethan, but his terrified eyes made her stop. "What did you hear?" Rachel asked, half joking, half worried. Ethan pointed toward Mr. Harrison's house, his voice trembling. "Smoke? A bad smell? She said we have to help." His seriousness sent a chill down Rachel's spine. Was this imagination or something else? Torn between doubt and worry, Rachel decided to check on Mr. Harrison. As she approached the porch, a sharp, pungent odor hit her. Danger rushed through her instincts. She immediately called emergency services. The inspection revealed a severe gas leak. One spark could have caused an explosion. When everything was secured, Rachel returned home, her heart still pounding. Ethan stood at the door, waiting. She hugged him tightly, unable to hide her confusion. For the first time, Rachel wondered, were Ethan's words truly just imagination? After the incident, Rachel tried to explain everything logically, but part of her was shaken. Still, she wasn't ready to believe her 3-year-old son sensed something beyond understanding. But then something happened, something that put her own life at risk. One morning, Rachel visited the doctor for persistent fatigue. She received a new prescription, brought it home, and set it on the kitchen counter. Ethan was playing nearby, but the moment he noticed the box, he froze. His eyes locked onto it as if he saw something dangerous. He ran to Rachel, gripping her arm. "Mom, don't take that. The lady in blue said it's not good for you." Rachel froze. "What are you talking about, Ethan? The doctor prescribed it." But Ethan grew more frantic. His urgency terrified Rachel. Logic said it was impossible. Children didn't understand medicine, but fear and the memory of the gas leak shook her. After a moment of internal struggle, she called the doctor. That phone call saved her. The doctor checked her file and panicked. A nurse had given her the wrong medication, one dangerously incompatible with her condition. Rachel stood speechless, her hands trembling. That evening, she told Michael everything. He tried to stay calm, but shock flashed in his eyes. He had dismissed Ethan's warnings before as coincidence or new parent anxiety. But now, with Rachel's life nearly endangered, he could no longer ignore it. Maybe something really is guiding him, he whispered, a mix of fear and reverence. From that moment, something invisible shifted in their home. Doubt gave way to caution, then respect. Michael looked at his son with new eyes, loving, wary, grateful. And Rachel, after everything, began to believe Ethan's intuition was not random. It was the voice of something greater. After Rachel narrowly escaped danger, Michael closely observed Ethan. He no longer dismissed the boy's words, though skepticism lingered. Then came the moment that shattered all remaining doubt. One morning, Michael grabbed his briefcase and headed out for work. Suddenly, Ethan ran to him, terrified. "Daddy, don't take that road. The lady in blue said it's dangerous. You'll get hurt. The car will crash." Michael paused, kneeling to reassure him. "It's okay, Ethan. Daddy goes every day." But Ethan clung to him, sobbing. His panic shook Michael. Trying to calm him, Michael delayed leaving. 10 minutes later, he turned on the TV for traffic news. What he saw made his blood run cold. A massive accident had occurred on his exact commute route. A truck had lost control, plowing through several cars. The crash happened at the precise time Michael would have been there. If Ethan hadn't stopped him, Michael turned to his son, who stood anxiously nearby. Emotions flooded him: fear, gratitude, reverence. For the first time, he embraced Ethan tightly, unable to hide the tremor in his voice. From that day, the family no longer tried to rationalize or deny anything. They accepted that Ethan possessed a strange, extraordinary intuition, a gift they needed to cherish. This became even clearer when Ethan warned Rachel about her estranged sister, Sarah. "You have to call Aunt Sarah. She's hurting. The lady in blue says help now." Though they hadn't spoken in years, Rachel trusted Ethan. Her call reached Sarah at the exact moment she was experiencing a dangerous medical emergency. Rachel rushed to her side in time to save her. In that moment, Rachel realized Ethan wasn't just saving lives, he was healing the fractures in their family. After several life-saving events, the family adjusted to listening to Ethan. His warnings became part of their routine, not out of fear, but out of respect. But then something happened that extended far beyond their household, something that brought their entire neighborhood into the circle of belief. It happened on a stormy afternoon. Dark clouds gathered, and the wind howled through the trees. Ethan was playing outside when he suddenly froze, staring toward Mrs. Coleman's yard. After a tense moment, he sprinted into the house, panicked. "The tree is going to fall. The lady in blue said we have to help Mrs. Coleman now." Rachel and Michael didn't hesitate. They followed Ethan to Mrs. Coleman's home. The elderly woman was outside collecting laundry, unaware of the old tree in her yard. Its trunk cracked and weakened, shaking violently in the wind. "Mrs. Coleman, move!" Rachel shouted. Just seconds later, the tree collapsed exactly where she had been standing. Branches crashed down in a spray of splinters. Trembling, Mrs. Coleman realized she had narrowly escaped death. With tears in her eyes, she held Ethan's hands. "If it weren't for you," news spread quickly. Neighbors began looking at Ethan with newfound respect. Not curiosity, not fear, but gratitude. His warnings were no longer dismissed as childish fantasies, they were taken seriously. What was even more remarkable was Ethan himself. After this event, he changed. He became more open, more expressive. He laughed more, talked more, ran freely through the yard, hugged his mother often, and held his father's hand every morning. Rachel noticed the heaviness in his eyes fading, like a cloud lifting. Michael saw it too. Whenever Ethan mentioned the lady in blue, there was no fear, only calm trust. Their family wasn't just being protected, they were being healed from within by love, faith, and the deep connection Ethan brought into their lives. The boy who once lived in silence had finally found his voice, and with it the family discovered a new kind of hope, brighter, warmer, and more enduring than ever.